Hi, everybody. Welcome to Wholehearted Loving. I'm Stephanie.
Hi, I'm Georgiana.
Today we have a quote that we're going to talk about thoughts and words. But first, we're going to start with a body practice. G, do you want to say a little bit about why we do this and then leave it up?
Okay. Yeah, body practice. I like to call them self-connection practices, right? Just to know where you're at, how you're feeling, check in with yourself before we engage with the world. So let's start off by finding your anchoring spot. The second I say that, I already see you wiggling your butt.
It's my butt, yeah.
That's for me as well, my butt. So feel what your butt is sitting on, or if you're standing, feel what your feet are touching. Maybe you want to use your hands as your anchor. Notice what your hands are touching and notice your breath. And we'll start this practice by placing, I would say, one hand on your body, and I'm going to place it on like my chest, front of my chest. And really what matters here is placing your hand on your body in a way that reminds you to care for yourself. Okay. And as you feel your hand there, notice your breath. And with your other hand, we're going to extend it. Extend it in front of you in a way that symbolizes care for someone else or inviting someone else into your space. So there's one hand on your body caring for you, and there's one hand opening up saying, welcome to my space, or I want to care for you too. I want to care for me and I want to care for you. And then I always like to let the hands land on our own bodies to finish. I don't know what I wanted to do. I don't know if you are watching us or listening to us, but if you're watching us, hi. I'm just wiggling. I just follow the impulse to wiggle.
It's a frequent impulse. That's interesting. My hand is on my shoulder, across my chest and on my shoulder. And that's an interesting, when I'm extending to someone and yet I'm covering myself, that was sort of an interesting internal experience for me. It felt like a very boundaried giving.
Yes. And that's why I really like this posture, because it's like, I'm going to care for me and I need to put some boundaries in place. And at the same time, I want to care for you. Right. Or some of you might have noticed, I don't actually want to extend my arms out. I'm not ready yet. I just want to care for me first for a while. And that's good information too. Right. So these practices are never about forcing you to do anything. It's about noticing whether your body says, yeah, I do want to feel my heart and extend my hand and open up. Or maybe you don't, and that's okay. And do you let that be okay? Right. Or maybe you feel so filled up and cared for that you're like, I'm going to extend both arms out to someone because I have that spaciousness to really invite someone or someone's energy in right now. So, and it changes, right? Moment to moment, we need and feel different things. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I came across something that I thought it would be fun for us to chat about. So I'll read it out loud. 2 things to remember in life. 1, take care of your thoughts when you're alone. And 2, take care of your words when you're with people. What comes up for you hearing that?
8 billion things, as usual. And a mess of how to sort through them and decide which one to say. The first thing that comes to mind is I'm going through a lot of life changes right now, and it's a time of like super uncertainty and kind of turmoil. And I'm a very emotional person, and I'm prone to a lot of anxiety and like physical manifestations of anxiety. So I was somewhere the other day and driving home, and all the energy came up, and I felt the tears start to come, and I noticed the brain start to go. Or I noticed that the brain had been going for God knows long enough for me to now be crying in the car. And I noticed these thoughts are not pleasant or helpful or necessary.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then the truck in front of me stopped, and his little brake light was a rectangle, and your voice came in saying, "Find a rectangle." It's like, there's a rectangle. And then I looked around for another. I'm like, okay, drive the car, but also find a rectangle. And I thought, God, like all of the stuff I'm worrying about is still there. It still exists. I'm still aware of it. But it's not my focus right now. That's not what I'm choosing to think about in this moment, because I will go insane, you know? Mm-hmm. And so your question makes me realize how much of my life I spent just thinking horrible thoughts, like about myself, about other people. All of the unexpressed feeling and anger became thoughts, you know, and stories and judgments, and not patterns of like pleasantness. Alternatively, sometimes all that's playing in my brain is a happy little song, you know, with not a thought to be found.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you notice in that moment, I don't actually want to add more thoughts of this nature to this moment. So let me add a rectangle.
Mm-hmm.
And that diffuses some of that energy that's been spinning around.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
It really does. Yeah. The thoughts that you're describing, like, they're not really thoughts. They're like a plague of the brain. You know, this is not a useful time to be thinking. Nothing needs to be figured out. It's just this underlying rumination, this like low-key self-hatred and terror, existential terror, just chattering away. If someone was in my car saying to me the things that I was thinking, I'd be like, get out. Don't come back.
Yes. I remember doing this exercise with clients before, where we imagine taking our fear or anxiety, if that's how you call it, and just imagine taking it out of your body and plopping it next to you on the couch. And then to give it some like human characteristics, like arms or legs or a funny face. And like just to let it talk. Let like this fear dude talk. And that's really helpful because it creates a little bit of distance from us, that it's not like in us, but it's like outside of us, and it still gets to have a voice. And also I remember saying exactly this, what you said to someone. I said, if this was like a person, like this was a person who was following you around all day long, saying this stuff to you, would you be like, yes, please come. I'm going to the grocery store now. You want to come? And then later I'm going to go to the, have dinner. Do you want to come there too? And later I'm going to go work on a project. And do you want to come there too? And actually I'll give you a microphone so that you can really belt it out. All these things you want to say. Like we would say like a huge no to that. Yet we are the ones who add more of them, right? More of those thoughts. And, when you said earlier here, you said, well, nothing needs to be figured out right now. That to me is a different kind of thought. That to me is you choosing different words that help your system feel differently.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And that brings in the words piece, choosing your words carefully around other people. I mean, we are other people. This horrible part of myself that for some reason I named Dave a few years ago. If Dave
horrible
was
feeling part.
Horrible thinking and feeling. I would hate Dave. I would hate him. So I'm giving all of this energy to an aspect of myself that I actually would feel hatred towards. Aww. Like, what's that about? You know,
how can you love Dave a little bit more?
I mean, parts of me love Dave.
Dave is just trying to tell you what's up, man.
that it isn't "What's up, Dave?" It's, this is current, This is,
He just wants to say, Stephanie, I feel scared right now. Big things are changing in my life. Listen to me.
Yeah. Well, and this is the thing, right? So if Dave was like, "I'm afraid," be like, "Dude, I can sit with you for that for sure."
Yes.
But all of this nonsense that you're spewing, that's just cripples me,
Yes.
all of that nonsense I spew.
And that's the thing is when we drill down to it, it always comes down to, I feel scared. I feel angry. I feel sad, like something really basic.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like when we say that and we say that out loud, if you would have sat in the car and felt your hand on the steering wheel and said, oh, what these words and thoughts in my mind are telling me is that right now I feel scared. Right. Lots is about to change in my life, or lots is changing my life, and I feel really scared. Yeah, that makes sense. And learn to be with that. Mm-hmm. Those are words of care. Those are thoughts of care that we can extend to ourselves.
Yeah.
Right.
Man, it takes a lot of work to get there. Or it took me a lot. I think some people just are naturally they discover there's another way and they put it on and that's that. There's so much processing and stuff that comes up for me. I'm imagining, I'm still in my mind, I'm behind this truck at the stop sign, seeing the rectangle and the part of my brain that recognizes what's really going on for me. Mm-hmm. The other part is still there. The physical responses and reactions are still happening, and I can technically manage them and resource them and feel all the nice things and know it's just an incredible expansion of how we live. Mm-hmm. And I can choose different words for myself, ones I might use with people, for example.
Well, that's the thing is when it comes down to it, most people who struggle with speaking to themselves kindly speak to other people really kindly. Mm. And so I will remind people, you have this nurturing voice in you. That skill set is something you have access to because you use it all the time with the people you love and care about. So that's great. Yay, you have it. And now we just got to practice turning it towards yourself. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. And that was a big learning and a relief for me. Because I'm oh, I do know how to do this. I say these really kind, accepting, warm things to lots of people when they're having a hard time and feeling really overwhelmed.
And what if I just them?
Yeah, and what if I just practice saying them out loud? And at first it sounds weird and clunky, but I guarantee you if you practice saying the exact same thing that you would say to a friend, you're going to start noticing that your body's oh, it does feel better, right? Maybe not right away, but if you are committed and willing to just do something that might sound funny and say it out loud, that part really matters, saying it out loud, things begin to shift.
They really do.
Right? Some caring words towards ourselves. When I think about you sitting behind that truck, Dave is on high alert, trying to tell you what's up. I think of, speaking to Dave, your fear, with kindness. Mm-hmm. And also this phrase that's really helped me, which is, even though right now I feel scared, what I know to be true is. Mm-hmm. Right. And you were essentially saying to yourself, even though right now I feel scared, what I know to be true is nothing needs to be figured out right in this exact moment. Right. And that sentence is very powerful to say, because what it does, and when I walk people through this, when they finish saying the sentence and we check in with their body, often they'll be oh, a relief or a sigh or a sinking in, and we'll have a chat about it and why that is. And it's because we're honoring the fear. We're not making ourselves wrong for it. And we're also helping ourselves access thoughts that are more helpful. Right? But usually what we do is we either focus more and more on the fear and it becomes bigger and bigger because we add more fear thoughts in. Or we try to like add these positive affirmations in and logic in of, well, right now I don't have to figure it out, so it's fine. And that only gets us so far, because eventually Dave's on the megaphone saying, Stephanie, you're not listening to me. I'm terrified. And so the practice is widening the lens to bring together and make space for your feelings and more helpful and kind and reassuring words.
Yeah. So I need to say that there's some surreptitious activity within me that can take over. Like when you said logic, that's definitely the place I would go to. So the feeling of honoring the fear, making space for all of the feelings, is a very different thing than addressing the fear. I'm using air quotes if you're not watching. I would make the fear quieter by trying to solve the problems, or by like injecting something more into it, which is really just me giving the fear more energy in effect, you know? That's a really important thing, I think, for sneaky minds.
We're not trying to lessen fear. We're just trying to be with fear. And also, when we feel an opening to it, a readiness and a willingness, even if it's only 1%, to bring in a more helpful thought that also you believe to be true. Like sometimes I walk people through this and they'll choose a thought and I'll look at their face and I'm like, what was that? And they're like, yeah, I don't believe that to be true. I'm like, well, then let's let that one go, right? Because that one's not it. It's not about trying to fool yourself.
Yeah.
It's about finding that thought that's helpful, that there is even like 1% openness to seeing or feeling that there's a truth in that.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think a lot of us spend a lot of time trying to fool ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hiding and fooling. Also, I think without having done a lot of this work and the feelings, really honoring our feelings and slowing down is what's down. I have to actually do it, because I really do. Gee, earlier you called me a stallion racing through the streets or something like that, and that's the feeling. And did I just lose my thought? I did. Goodbye, thought.
Goodbye, thought. Maybe it will come back.
You're talking about fooling ourselves. Onward and upward.
Onward and upward. I'm going to read this thing again to myself, or maybe I'll read it out loud and see what comes up for me. 2 things to remember in life. Take care of your thoughts when you're alone. Take care of your words when you're with people. This has been really meaningful to me, like this concept of take care of your thoughts when you're alone. Is my alone thoughts similar to yours, very critical of myself? My alone thoughts also told me you must stay alone and hide while you're having a hard time. And so I've been learning to shift those alone thoughts to include, this might be a good time to let someone know you're having a hard time, right? Instead of continuing to fortify the old belief that I must do hard things on my own.
What was in that belief? Like, what are the thoughts when are you wanting to protect people from your misery or not appear a certain way, or what?
I think it's very interesting. I don't know why I said this is very interesting, but like it was interesting to me when I started to see this for what it was, is that there's many layers, but one layer is I had always been the one that people came to for help and support and advice and wisdom since I was a really young girl. So that became my identity that was the role I took in dynamics with people. But it also became my survival mechanism of, if I can be useful and helpful and wise to people, I'll be wanted and accepted and welcomed. So to show someone to reach out to someone when I was having a hard time, like in the middle of having a hard time, in my mind, like the words in my head, thoughts in my head were dangerous, dangerous. Don't let them know you're having a hard time, because if you're having a hard time, why would they ever come to you for anything? And if they don't come to you for anything, you're going to have nobody. So that was a bit of what was going on for me. It also stemmed from being young, growing up. I see the childhood bedroom and it was getting in some sort of trouble, or I'd pissed my parents off, and I knew I needed to run as fast as I could before they could grab the bamboo duster to hit me, and like run into my room, shut the door and close it, and like just stay in my room. And that was my safe sanctuary. And then I would cry face down in my pillow, and I would like at some point be sick of that, and then put my head by the door and listen to see if it was still like angry energy out in the house. And when I thought it was okay to go back in, I would emerge fine again. And we would never talk about it again.
Perfect.
And so I had a long history of, when things are hard, go hide yourself, be by yourself, sort it out yourself, then come back when it's all sorted, and emerge back into life like all is well.
Right.
So that's old patterning for me. And I've had to be very intentional about shifting that pattern.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
The energy in the house feels like an important topic that we should talk about at some point.
Yes.
That's such a thing.
Energy of the house. Huge thing. Huge thing. And the take care of your words when you're with other people.
Right.
What that means for me is like, actually, we talked about this last episode of not speaking my truth. I'm trying to be much more intentional about making sure my truth makes it to the table. Right? So I have a tendency to be very good at kind words towards other people, and then forget about me. So when it says take care of your words towards other people, that's what I'm learning and practicing. The other thing I'm learning and practicing is when I do express what's not working with me. And like, this has gotten a lot better. So this is not as big for me right in this moment, but in my household growing up, like if you wanted to be heard, you had to be loud and mean.
Right.
And so when I was trying to find my voice, I was like, oh, maybe it needs to be loud and mean then, like, because that's how you get heard. And then I realized, well, that's not really true to who I am. And also, it's not constructive. It doesn't bring to the relationship what I want it to. So when it talks about bringing care to your words with other people, for me, it's just this ongoing intention of, how do I share what's true for me while also doing it in a way that exudes care for someone else. Right?
Man, I want to deeply appreciate you for that. And I can't remember if I told you this thing that happened last week that made me appreciate you so much. There was weird energy in my house. Things needed to be talked about. I was like, can we talk about things? And my housemate was like, I can't talk about things right now. Like, I'm just not in a place to talk about things. Like, gotta go. I was like, okay. So I spent a week managing my feelings of anxiety of that there's something in the ether that needs to be talked about. Because like you, I'm used to, if there's something wrong, someone just spews it out, and like, you're not wondering anymore, at least, you know? And we finally did get to talk. It's clunky and all of the things. And as I was reflecting on how annoying it was to have this huge length of time, I thought about how wonderful it is with you, because you say the thing. So when there's some discomfort that needs to be aired and dealt with, the fact is it's uncomfortable. There's no way for it to not be, it's just going to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So when you have something that you want to bring up with me, I can tell immediately, right? And then I get the annoyed feeling like there's something, like she wants to say something, just bloody say the thing. Like, why I got to sit here wondering? But you are saying the thing, you are taking a moment and you're slowly and carefully and thoughtfully saying the thing. And my own irritation that's going underneath that is like, hurry up, faster, let's get this down. I love you. Which, is for me to manage while it's happening. But I wanted to appreciate you so much for doing that. There are people who just run away or won't say the thing. And like, that's a different kind of uncomfortable for a long time. When you want to talk about something hard, it's a little bit uncomfortable for a little time. And that's really nice.
It's because I'm the sweet turtle. Yeah. We'll share more about the turtle another time. But thank you. Thank you for sharing that. It's taken me a lot of practice, because it used to be, well, I better just shut my mouth because I don't know how to say it in a way that's helpful, or I better not say it and risk not being liked.
Right.
So it's taken me practice to slow, like when you say, I got to slow things down, like I had to learn how to slow things down. Like when I talk to you about what's hard, I really am taking my time. Like I'll say a sentence, I'll let my body feel it. I'll see if there's more to say, or if maybe a lot of emotion comes over me because I've said that thing and I'm feeling it all. And that's something I wasn't comfortable doing before, taking my time and letting my body feel it and letting my body guide me to, is there more to say, or is this good?
Yeah.
Right? It would just be, no, I'm holding tight. I'm going to say nothing. I'm just going to say the things I think you want to hear, or I'm going to blast it at you super fast because this is so uncomfortable and I just want to get out of my system.
Yeah.
And then I'd blast it and then I'd take off. Be like, I'm out of here.
Well, and it's an effect of giving up, right? It's an overwhelm, and it's just like I'm prepared to lose this relationship at the moment because I have to let out this blast or I'll explode, Yeah.
And so I had to learn with all these practices that we, walk you through at the beginning and end of every episode. That's what's helped me find some comfort in what used to be so uncomfortable. Right? Slowing down, pausing, letting my body actually feel the impact of the words I just said out loud.
Yeah. Do you mean the impact on yourself or the other person, or
both?
Yeah.
Both. I think primarily with me first. What I noticed about having this conversation with you this morning, where just bawled my eyes out and told you what's been up, I wasn't actually really looking at you because I knew you were there. I knew you were with me, crying so much I can't even see. Took my glasses off. I just felt like Steph has invited me to share my heart with her. So I'm going to do that. And I'm going to be with me, because the only way I can share my heart with her is if I'm being with me. Right? And whereas in the past, I would have been scanning you. I would have been scanning your eyes, what you said, your tone, the words. I would have been scanning your body language to see oh, was it okay that I said that? Oh, does she think I'm a bitch now because I said that? Or is she totally being I'm done with her? Right? I wouldn't actually be with how are things for me and what do I want Steph to know in this moment, because I would be so concerned with what you thought.
What you thought I thought.
What I thought you thought, exactly. What I thought you thought, right? So it's taken me a lot of practice to be able to be with me and be with the sensations in my body, the emotions that are there, the thoughts that might be spinning, and learn to hold myself with care in those moments while I'm attempting to let you in to my world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was the thought that I lost earlier. Is the slowing down is the only way I can actually feel those things. I'm so adept at hiding from those things and uncomfortable sensations.
Mm-hmm. I love you.
I love you too. There was more I wanted to say. It's weird, when you're talking and there are things that come up as you're talking.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be that I wouldn't be able to be present in the conversation because I'd be noting those things and hanging on to them so that I'd have something to say. And I stopped doing that. I started trusting that the conversation would just flow, and if the thing wanted to come back, it would. But that was a huge amount of work also. Also, the pressure of feeling like people are listening, so I have to remember right now what the thing was, which is not true either.
Yes, it's not true. People, this can be a great opportunity for people to learn to be with silence and wonder. And whatever sensations come up in their body when there's a pause.
Yeah. I get images a lot of the time of
Chucky.
Things. Very rarely of Chucky, but not never. No, you'll say something and an image will pop into my mind. And so then later when it comes time where I'm like, oh, I want to say the thing, all I remember is the image and I don't know what I wanted to say about it,
Oh. Can you tell me the image, about the image?
It's a yard. It's a yard from a house I used to live in, so that's not the most helpful, but something must have happened in that yard, What was it? I know I wanted to talk about truth-telling and the words we choose with people. I find it really frustrating. I mean, yeah, when people are dishonest or when people are like capitulating or just trying to make somebody feel better. Oh, actually, that's one of the visuals I got when you were talking about scanning people to see what their responses are.
Yeah.
That is a feeling. Oh, it's the yard. We're in the yard. And it's an ex, and he's saying something to me, and he's watching me. He's watching me in these ways where he's making up stories. Like when someone is scrutinizing you in that way and trying to assess how you're responding, they are exclusively in the act of making up stories. And it's such a frustrating feeling for me. I can picture him doing this, and I'm like, I can see you making up stories about what you think I'm feeling and thinking. And there's nothing I can do. Just stop this. And that the things are not true. That's an interesting thing. And so choosing words, like things I only want to hear sure if it's true. There are people who are like, oh yeah, that thing you want to do, that sounds great. And then comes time to do the thing and they're like, oh no, I don't want to do that. You certainly gave the impression that you did. I think it's really easy for us to want to make people feel good. So we say things and we represent ourselves in ways that are not actually true.
This makes me laugh because it reminds me of living in the Netherlands. I lived in the Netherlands for 7 years as an adult. Canadians need to live in the Netherlands for a while. Every single Canadian. And of course, I'm generalizing. But they just tell it like it is. That was my impression of living there. Like, it's not about caretaking your feelings. I mean, I'm sure they do it in other ways. This is a human thing. But what I loved and what I learned living there was, I don't believe I ever heard a maybe when someone said, like, do you want to do this? It was like a yes or a no.
Wow.
It was just clear.
Yeah.
And it was never like personal, and it wasn't like mean spirited. It was just
true.
No thanks, or no for right now. Maybe that changes to a yes at some point, but right now it's a no. And
Love
I'm like,
that.
Okay. Whereas I think it's very much at least West Coast Canadian style. Yeah, sure. That would be great.
Great. See you there. Yeah, let's get together.
When really it's like, no, I really don't want to, but I can get out of this and the uncomfortable feelings faster if I just say, yeah, sure, that would be amazing.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So two things come up for me now. I moved to Toronto for a few years. So I'm from Vancouver, which is notoriously the way you're describing. Like, we're flaky as all get out. And I moved to Toronto, and around the corner from where I lived, I was living with a friend, and around the corner was this big church. Like, it's just a different scene in Toronto than it is in Vancouver. A big church with a big neon cross that says, Jesus saves. And there's a lady sitting outside, and we started chatting politely. And she's like, oh, you should come to church on Sunday, right? And Vancouver just shoots out of me. I'm like, sure, great, totally, see you there. And then I go to leave. And my friend's like, that lady expects to see you on Sunday. I said, she doesn't. What are you talking about? Like, okay, you're going to get used to Toronto. We don't do that here. And I had to learn that people didn't flake out on plans. People didn't say yes when they meant no. It's incredible. And following up with that, there was a comedian I saw once at a stand-up show, and he was comparing Vancouverites to Torontonians. And he said, Vancouverites are polite but not nice, and Torontonians are nice but not polite. So, this veneer of pleasantness, like, can we get rid of that and find genuine kindness? And
and be willing to speak what's actually true, right? And I heard something similar from an American speaking about Canadians. Again, generalizing, but I see the thread here saying that, you're not actually nice. You're actually you're rude because you're lying. You don't actually want to go to church on Sunday. Yeah. There's no part of you that is going to show up.
Yeah. I didn't even want to be talking to you in the first place.
Lied to the lady.
What a bitch. I'm a rude liar having a conversation I don't even want to be having. Totally.
But, growing up here, when you said, oh, and Vancouver came out of my mouth, we would call that, I'm so polite.
So polite. Yeah.
Yeah. And nice and friendly.
It's an epidemic, Yeah. Also, when I moved to Toronto, there was quickly after I arrived a series in the Vancouver Sun, a 5-day long series. It was significant enough to merit a 5-day series. And I think it was on the cover of Torontonians who'd moved to the West Coast for our beautiful mountain lifestyle. And they're like, I have not made a single friend. I've been here for 5 years. People tell me they want to do things and then they don't ever do them. Like, what is happening here? And what is happening here? What are we doing?
What are we doing? Yes. What are we doing? So this is a reminder to check in to see whether your yeses are true yeses and your nos are true nos.
And what stories you're making up with the extra space, I have one friend. I have known one human being in my entire life who, when you ask, like, hey, there's this thing going on, do you want to come? She thinks and she says, no. And everyone is floored. The response is inevitably some combination of like, and like, well, what do you have to, like, tell me all your plans? What do you mean you can't coach? You're not, like, what? We just insert all the stories. And, it's usually something like she has something else to do. But in the absence of all this information, we make up a bunch of crap.
Yeah. I would say I have two people who are very, like, have been examples for me. You are one of them.
Good.
Like, where I could, like, excitedly ask you, do you want to do this? Or, like, tell you something excitedly and you'd be like, no. And it doesn't hurt my feelings because I'm like, yeah, because when it's a yes, she is like, yes, this is a yes, right? And my friend Michelle, she's also really good Like, she's like, that sounds awful, dreadful. No, thank you. Like, she'll say something like, thank you for thinking of me. And that sounds dreadful. So no.
I hope I give some qualifications that give it context. Just a no thudding onto the table is unique.
Thud. It's a no. And again, like I think we spoke about in the last episode of like how permission giving it is to see other ways of being, especially other ways of being in people you care and you respect. Because you're like, oh, like this is a good hearted, kind person, like a good friend. And they're showing me that there's other ways that I can do life. And it doesn't mean I have to do them that way, but it might make me realize that, hey, I've been really stuck on this other side and I didn't realize there was any room to move with that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I sometimes find myself like gasping out loud and saying like, can you even do that? Someone did that? Amazing. I'm going to try it. See how it feels.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have a body practice to show us out? Is there anything in mind?
This is going to be the one because apparently my body just intuitively went to it, which
Great.
is, finding your anchor again. And then on the inhale through the nose, bring your shoulders up to your ears. And on the exhale, just let them drop. And just doing that 2 more times at your own pace. Inhale, drawing shoulders up. Exhale, and exaggerate that drop.
Like dropping 2 heavy bags.
Exactly. It's like the weight that you carry, like feel that tension and release.
That's nice. Thanks,
Yeah.
Gigi.
Thank
Anything
you.
else you want to say about thoughts for ourselves and words for others?
Practice doing both with care. Yep. And usually you can learn from one side or the other. One side might be more caring, whether it's your thoughts to yourself or your words to others, and see what is habitual for you and let that show you what's the opposite muscle to start practicing more of.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Thanks, Boo.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody, we're done for this week. So we will see you next time. Like, follow, and subscribe. And if anything we've said here today has been helpful for you, please share with somebody that you care about.
Yeah. See you next time.
Hey, bye.